Welcome to Time Vault Games. Here we go with all of the red cards from Strixhaven. Academic Dispute at 1 red. We have an instant that allows you to learn. So for those unfamiliar, learning is going to either loot, essentially cycling a card from your hand, or get a lesson you own from outside the game and put it into your hand. What this does is target creature blocks this turn of Fable. You may have it gain reach until end of turn. So you may force their creature to be able to block your flyer, but you're going to potentially slam a larger creature into their smaller creature for a little bit of value, plus get your lesson out of it. Ardent Dust Speaker. At 5 mana, we have a 3/4 Minotaur Shaman. Whenever it attacks, you may put an instant or sorcery from your graveyard onto the bottom of your library. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library, and you can play those cards this turn. So that's actually a really interesting card. Instants and sorceries are not going to be abundant, but getting extra use out of them, man, like that is something. Nice. I mean, that's going to actually, that's one of the better cards that I've seen so far for limited. Just essentially attacking and getting to draw 2 cards. Probably playing a land. Your density of lands in a pre-release pool is generally going to be somewhere around 17, 18 lands, closer to 50% than the kind of 33% that constructed decks often are. So you're probably going to make your land drop for turn and hopefully get another spell out of it. So yeah, not bad at all. Plus you're putting a potential powerful card back into your deck. If there's shuffling involved, then you may actually draw it again. Otherwise, you're probably not going to see it if it's on the bottom. Blood Age General, 2 mana for a 2/2, and you can tap it to give attacking spirits +1/+0 until end of turn. So that card definitely doing some work. 2/2 for 2 with a upside. Very appropriate to the current political climate. We've got a conspiracy theorist here. Flat Earther, 1 in a red, 2/2 for a human shaman. Whenever it attacks, you can pay 1 and discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, you may exile one of those from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it this turn. Wow, that's a lot of text right there. So this is kind of a value bear. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I mean, you're happy with a 2/2 anyways. I think there's a chance you're going to end up using these abilities. So that seems fine. I guess buy into that one. Crackle with Power. What a mana cost. Triple X plus double red. Crackle with Power deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X targets. So how are we going to make this useful? So if we do X equals 1, that's going to be 5 mana to do 5 damage to 1 target. It's fine. That's fine for a mythic. I mean, that you might expect better for a mythic, but 5 to do 5 is totally fine. But if we do X equals 2, now we're going to be coming in at 8 mana, and you're going to do 10 damage to 2 different targets. All right, yeah, this is an interesting card. I mean, X equals 4 is actually lethal in a game with 20 starting life, but expect this to see play in Commander. Expect this to see play in your pre-release pool. Just being able to do 5 damage to something for 5 is totally fine, and the ability to potentially do 10 damage and just close out a game is very, very dangerous. So yeah, that one's really, really good. Draconic Intervention. 4 mana as an additional cost to cast a spell, exile an instant or sorcery from your graveyard, and it deals X damage to each non-land or each non-dragon creature where X is the exiled card's mana cost. If the creature dealt damage this way would die, you exile it instead, and then you exile this card. So each non-dragon creature. So we got some board wipe here. Yeah, it's conditional board wipe. I don't think that's embarrassing to sleeve up as long as you've got enough instants and sorceries in your deck that you can use this to clear the board. A lot of the time, board wipes really get people off guard as you know they'll try and overcommit to get past where you are on board, and then you just completely blow up the whole board and then play the creatures that you've been holding back. Dragon's Approach. At this 3-mana sorcery does 3 damage to each opponent, and you can exile Dragon's Approach and 4 cards named Dragon's Approach from your graveyard. If you do, search your library for a dragon creature and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle, and you can play any number of this card. So, interesting card. You got to play it from your hand. As part of this, you can't just get these into the graveyard and do it. You've got to actually cast one from your hand. But if you do, you can get a dragon creature. That could be a changeling. That could be Kakushu, that could be Bogarden Hellkite. There's some interesting dragons. I'm not sure what the best one is at this point. Let me know what dragon you'd get in with that card. A Freet Flame Painter, 4 mana, 1/4 with double strike. Just in time. We got rid of Dreadhorde Arcanist, and now we've got the Efreet. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you can cast target instant or sorcery from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. And if that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. People will have fun with this in Commander for sure. Cards like the one that used to be played with Omniscience. Enter the Infinite, sorry about that. That type of stuff can be good old-fashioned fun with this card. Of course, taking extra turns if you want to not have fun, also an option. Enthusiastic Study, 2 in a red instant. Creature gets +3/+1 and trample, and you also learn. Probably a little bit more than I want on my combat tricks, to be honest. I like this type of effect when it's like 1 mana without the learn. With the learn on there at 3, maybe it's playable. It's probably not embarrassing. But, yeah, I mean, the creature's probably going to die very often. So you're going to trample, kill a bigger creature, push through a little bit of damage, and learn. That'll depend on the strength of your learn cards as well. Explosive Welcome, 7 mana to deal 5 damage to any target and 3 damage to any other target, and then add 3 red. That's pretty good to be casting off of an Omniscience or something, generating mana. But as it stands, 8 mana is a big ask, and the effect is fantastic, though. I mean, just 8 mana is an awful lot to ask. You can't properly think about that as a 5 mana spell, as just getting to that 8 mana threshold is an issue. Fervent Mastery, 5 casting costs. You can pay 4 rather than pay the mana cost. If you pay the 4, an opponent discards any number of cards, then draws that many cards, and you search your library for up to 3 cards, put them into your hand, shuffle them, and then discard 3 cards at random. So a triple gamble that if you do for cheaper, your opponent gets an upside of being able to discard any number of cards and then draw that many, which is probably quite bad for you in most formats. Yeah, a triple gamble's interesting. That's probably going to see a ton of Commander play. Tough to see where else it would be useful. Certainly the bar for Legacy is super high, which is often the lens that I look through. Used to look through everything with the lens of Vintage, but honestly that bar is way slower moving than Legacy. Legacy isn't a place where we can adopt new cards much more easily than Vintage. First Day of Class, 2 mana instant. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it gains haste until end of turn, and you learn. Yeah, kind of difficult to make work, but probably not the type of card I'd play, to be honest. So here's the problem with this. Like, you're paying the 2 mana the same time you're casting the creature, which is probably screwing with your curve. You probably want to like play a good solid 5 casting cost creature on turn 5, not some 3 casting cost creature with this that you make slightly better. Well, significantly better by giving it a +1/+1 counter and haste. When you're flooded, this type of card's amazing, but just overall, not digging that one. Fuming Effigy, 4 mana, 4/3. Whenever 1 or more cards leaves your graveyard, he does 1 damage to each opponent. That's probably going to have all sorts of combo potential in Commander. Yeah, I can think of several ways off the top of my head that would just like kill your opponent. Things like Crucible with any type of recurring land, like a fetch land, just sacking it, you just mill out your opponent. I mean, you have any type of Goblin Welder, intruder alarm combos, swapping things in and out of your graveyard. So there's a lot of contraptions that can be used with this card. It's also a common, so I'd be curious if there's going to be anything you can do with that. Well, we got Mere Retriever now in Pauper, so you could potentially use this as a kill in a Mere Retriever deck if it needs additional kill. I haven't really seriously looked at building that, but interesting card. Glad it's at common. Gives us more to think about. Grinning Ingus. Is this like the first actual set printing of this? I know he was in like Modern Masters or something. This was originally a Future Sight card. You can pay a red to return it to its owner's hand, and then add 2 colorless and a red. Activate this only as a sorcery. Interesting card with cost reducers, because you can pay a red to get him out, and then you can pay a red to return him, and then you get 2 colorless and a red. So, you know, he's an interesting potential combo piece. They did a lot to make sure that he wasn't super busted. Hall Monitor, 1 red for a 1/1 haste. It can pay 2 to make target creature not be able to block. Not the type of card I want to be sleeving up in Limited as a 1/1 for 1. Generally not going to be good enough. The ability to push through damage is nice, but I mean, I'm going to feel bad if I have to sleeve that card up. Heated Debate. Spell can't be countered. Deal 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker for 3. Love it. Absolutely love it. Totally great. Yep. Absolutely the type of card you want. It's a common. You're going to be very happy to have some of those in your pool and just KO your opponent's opposing creatures. 3 and a red here. Ignatius Inspiration. Deal 3 damage to any target and learn. Also love it. Illuminate History. I mean, Lightning Bolt is incredibly good. Like, Lightning Bolt, 1 red, awesome. But, like, we can't always have that. So sometimes you're just happy paying 3 mana for the same effect at sorcery speed in your limited pool. And the fact that it's got Learn on there really helps it out. Illuminate History. Another lesson, 4 mana. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. If there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, create a 3/2 red-white spirit creature token. Pretty likely that when this is happening, you're going to be having a 3/2. So basically, discarding cards to draw cards and getting a 3/2 body seems like that's actually exactly the type of lesson that I would want standing by, to be able to discard those extra lands that I'm drawing. So depending on the amount of learning that my deck has, I'd be pretty happy to have access to this card to really bail me out of a bad draw and kind of dump all of the cards that are not helping. Never mind the fact that some of those cards might actually have some utility in the graveyard. Illustrious Historian, 2 mana, 2/1, type of thing that we want in our pool to be able to get going sideways early and often, and at least be able to contend with our opponent's creatures if they are the faster deck, to be able to at least block. And then on top of it, we get to pay 5 and exile this to create a 3/2 red and white spirit token. Really think this is a strong card. Probably could have been an uncommon, and I think this one's actually quite good. The ability to contest the board early and then get value later. Yep, I mean, I'm gonna have a tough time not going some type of red here. Luckily, there's multiple combinations with red. Mascot Interception. 3 and a red. Oh, I guess there's only 2, right? Yeah, it's just Izzet and Boros, or whatever they're calling them in this set. Yeah, you probably are going to be forced into your house colors just because of the gold cards that we'll be getting to later. Mascot Interception, 4 mana sorcery. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature you control. If it targets a creature token, interesting. So you can steal a token for only 1 red. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, gets +2/+0 and haste until end of turn. So, I mean, it's a sorcery. You can steal a Merit Lage. That'd be hilarious. Not really going to happen. We've had the ability to do that for a while. But yeah, 4 mana for this. Generally not super exciting. 3 mana is usually better. They try and improve it by giving it a +2/+0. But we've had these type of effects. Usually they are much better at 3 mana. 4 mana might be good enough for this, but I wouldn't be happy about playing it just because it feels bad from a historical perspective, though it may end up being totally fine in this format. Pigment Storm, 5 mana sorcery, deals 5 damage to target creature excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you play it, 5 damage, possibly pile on some damage to your opponent, actually be creature removal, or player removal, I should say. If they're at 4 and they've got a 1 toughness creature, you can go ahead and throw that out there just to finish the game. Pillar Drop Warden, 4 casting costs, 1/5 with reach, and you can pay 2 and sack it to return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this only as a sorcery. Not really my tempo here. We've got a really slow card, 4 mana for a 1-power creature. You got to pay 2 and sack it as a sorcery. I mean, everything about this is super, super slow, which, you know, I guess is what they were going for with a Ghost Dwarf, but not exactly the type of card I'd be excited about playing, despite getting double use out of some really powerful instant or sorcery. Just too much of an investment. And you might not even have one in the graveyard. Retriever Phoenix, 4 casting costs, 2/2, flying and haste when it enters the battlefield. If you cast it, learn, and as long as it's in your graveyard, if you would learn, you may instead return it to the battlefield. So that's actually interesting. The ability to take kind of suboptimal learns, which might just be looting, and get this guy back instead. I like it. Yeah, I like it. Haste, flying. It learns itself. You can kind of loop multiple of these together. Yeah, I mean, it's a rare. You're not going to have... I mean, you might get 2. It's possible. Start from scratch. Choose 1. Start from scratch deals 1 damage to any target, or destroy target artifact. So, in a Braid, that only does 1 damage, but it can go to the face, and it's a sorcery, of course, as the lessons are, which, you know, gives you some utility. You'll be happy that it's in your sideboard if you've got learn cards. You often don't want to play cards that just destroy artifacts, as your opponent might not have artifacts. So in your sideboard, you'll bring them in if you know that it's going to be useful. But main deck, a card that just destroys artifacts, generally not going to be worthwhile unless you're playing like Mirrodin block or something. Stormkiln Artist. That was actually a thing that they were going for. I think one of their stated objectives was, how do we make Shatter a good card in Limited? Because it was always a garbage card. So, like, is there a way we can do this? And the answer was, like, make the entire format artifacts, and that's probably the only way. So anyways, this Dwarf Shaman gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and his Magecraft is whenever you Magecraft, create a treasure token. So, yeah, that's not bad. That's fun. I mean, he's very vulnerable. He's got a 2 backside, but you can have some fun with this card, and certainly in Commander. Getting a whole bunch of treasure. Sudden Breakthrough, 2 mana to give a creature +2/+0 and first strike until end of turn, and you create a treasure token. Yeah, that's a reasonable combat trick. Again, I enjoy the combat tricks coming in at 1 mana a lot more than having to commit 2 mana. But yeah, you get a treasure token out of it, so it's similar. A lot of the time, your combat tricks are going to happen. You attack pre-combat, main phase, don't do anything, so your mana's open. You attack with everything, then you can do your combat tricks, and then post-combat, you can play out your board depending on how everything went. The nice part about cheaper mana is if you don't use your mana, then on your opponent's turn, you can use those combat tricks, and you know, it's easier to keep 1 mana open than it is to keep 2. Tombshredder, certainly less of a problem, too. I mean, if you're just consistently leaving 2 or 3 mana open, you are not winning games. Tombshredder, 3 mana for a 2/2 haste, and you can exile an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this wolf kind of looks like a spirit wolf. I guess it's not. I guess it's just a wolf. It eats homework and can get swole to just eventually overtake your opponent. So this card seems very dangerous, especially at common. Probably not good enough for Pauper. Pauper's just got a really high bar. It feels like the type of card that you'd want to be able to play in Pauper, though. I will say that. Just getting bigger each turn, but just like compared to Carrion Feeder and, you know, the Aristocrats decks, I mean, that's a pathetic rate of growth compared to what's possible in that format. Twin Scroll Shaman, 3 casting costs, 1/2 double strike. Yeah, I'm probably not playing this unless I've got a whole bunch of ways to pump it. It's kind of a 2/2 for 3, which is not great. It does kill all of the 2/1s. But, you know, once you start putting pants on this guy, he swings a mighty hammer. I mean, you get this up to 2, 3, 4 power, double strike really starts to matter. And that is it for red. So we are moving right through these. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELV's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.